Lili Deutsch, nee Kahn, Lili, one L, L-I-L-I, Lili Kahn. Her name was really Franziska, like the grandmother, but she was called Lili, and everybody knew her as Lili. And she was 2 years younger than Otto H. Kahn. And she was beautiful. She was beautiful, considered a great beauty, frequently painted and drawn by Burne-Jones, for example. Her future lover, about whom I'm about to speak at some length, Walther Rathenau, thought and told her that she was like a princess. A princess. She was like a Byzantine princess educated in England. That's what Walther Rathenau said. She, at 24, the beautiful Lili married Felix Deutsch and became Mrs. Deutsch. And that was in Berlin. And she moved to Berlin, where she had an older sister, Clara, Mrs. Jonas, who was very active in the theater, and a friend of the famous playwright Gerhard Hauptmann, a major figure in the story. Lili Deutsch became Lili Kahn became Mrs. Deutsch, and Felix Deutsch was the second in command of the AEG, the German Edison Corporation. The AEG, which still exists, was the company, the organization that had supplied electricity to Germany in the late 19th century. Everybody knew her. It was huge, a huge corporation, and it was created by a man called Emil Rathenau, and Felix Deutsch became second in command and the heir of this great man who had himself, an engineer, who had himself created this huge, huge outfit, very rich, hugely famous, great prestige, and out of nothing. Self-made man. And Emil Rathenau had a son, Walther Rathenau, and he became the husband. He became, what am I talking about? He became the lover, if that is the word, of Mrs. Deutsch. So it was a very difficult relationship. There was Lili, her husband Felix, and Lili, starting, I think, not long after she got married, having a relationship is, I think, a very nice word, with Walther Rathenau, the son of the founder of the son, and not the heir. The heir was to be Felix Deutsch. There was a situation of rivalry. And when I say lover, I don't really mean lover, because it is almost universally assumed that it was a platonic affair, that it would have been impossible for either of them without total calamity to have consummated this thing. So for 15 years, until Rathenau's death in 1922, Lili Deutsch and Walther Rathenau were closely associated. Now, this was an extraordinary thing, not just because of the delicate relationship that Rathenau was the son of Emil Rathenau, who together with Felix, Lili's husband, had created this great monstrous organization. But the whole thing was extraordinary because Walther Rathenau was a huge celebrity. He was a self-made man. His father, Emil, wouldn't let him near the RAG. He believed that everybody should work himself, create his own career. And when Walther Rathenau later wrote, and he wrote a lot, and was very active and had all kinds of ideas, he thought that any kind of inheritance laws should be abolished. Nobody should nobody should inherit anything. And he himself within a few years, he had himself become created his own financial existence and became a member of the boards of 100 corporations. 100 corporations. And by the time when his father died, he was allowed to join this organization, the RAG, AGG, but not as a CEO, but as a president. He was like the chairman of the board. So he didn't have any executive power. However, he became a major figure in German industry and in German culture and German philosophy and German social thought, because he was a writer. He was not only an industrialist, but he was an industrialist who kept writing books. And he was Jewish. And he was known to be Jewish. And he never denied being Jewish. And his father was Jewish. And he suffered from this because he was never accepted. He was never accepted in German, in society, in spite of his extraordinary position and reputation and ability. He never was really accepted, and he suffered from this. He did his military service. He did it extremely well, as he did everything, but he could never have become an officer in the German army because he was a Jew. And he wasn't invited to the right places because he was a Jew. And he became extremely contradictory and self-hating because of that. He wrote an essay, long essay, very early in life, which was printed in a magazine, Die Zukunft, and which he called Höre Israel, which is modeled on the Jewish prayer Shema Israel, Höre, listen Israel. And he appealed to the Jews to become assimilated and to undo whatever Jewish characteristics they had. And this was an essay that, if you read it now, you'd shudder at the anti-Semitism, at the self-hatred. And this contradictory element in his personality pervaded everything. He was a great, huge industrialist. He became a huge capitalist who at the same time was writing books attacking the materialism of German society. He attacked the lacking of the soul in material life. He became interested in Eastern religions. He did all kinds of extraordinary things, which was very unusual for a great, huge figure in the top figure in German industry. In 1914, he was asked to organize the supply, the organization of raw materials for the war. And for a year he did this with such extraordinary efficiency and competence that the Times of London, in wartime, during the war between Germany and England, the Times credited him with having done something which would have been impossible in England, namely the efficient rationing, the rational organization for wartime industry and a supply of raw materials for industry. And then by 1915 or 1916, he gave that up, or he was succeeded by others, and he spent the rest of the war writing. He had a castle, of course. He bought a castle which had been built for the widow of the Prussian king, Frederick William II, in the early 19th century, a jewel, an architectural jewel. And he spent many weeks withdrawing to that, writing books on German philosophy, German social thinking, futurism. One book is called Of Things to Come. And he was extremely active and quite advanced thinking. And at the same time, he was in touch with Ludendorff, the German, one of the two who carried on the war, giving him advice on how to conduct the war. And he knew everybody. He knew everybody in Germany, and he knew everybody in the rest of Europe too. Extremely well connected. Also in the arts, in writers, and he was a close friend of Gerhard Hauptmann, who was also a great friend of Lili's. And Hauptmann was the new Goethe. Hauptmann was and not only that, they built a house near him in the Riesengebirge, in the mountains near the southeast of Berlin, and spent a lot of time with Hauptmann, and they said "du" to each other, which is in Germany a very unusual thing. And and all this while Lili was his lady friend. And in 1918, the war was over. By the way, he had always been on very good terms with the Kaiser. The Kaiser consulted him. But by 1918, the Kaiser was finished. Germany became a republic, and he devoted himself to going into the political life of the German Republic. And in 1921, he became a minister in the cabinet of the Weimar Republic, Minister of Reconstruction. And in 1922, or in the winter of 1921-22, he became foreign minister and devoted his attention, everything he could, to meeting the conditions of the Allies for reparations, but at the same time negotiating with the Allies to have the burden of reparations reduced. But his main effort was, he thought the only chance for the Weimar Republic, was to meet the conditions of the Allies. And for that he was hated. He was hated by the nationalists, by the early Nazis. He was publicly hated. He was castigated, threatened. And when the Chancellor of the Republic of Germany advised him to get some police protection, because they cried, there were all kinds of songs, extraordinary songs, demanding death to Rathenau. He refused police protection. And on June the 24th, No, I shouldn't have done that. In I think March 1922, there was a conference in Genoa with the Allies, all to do with reparations. And during this conference, he left the conference proceedings and he met with the Soviet foreign minister nearby in Rapallo. And he concluded a treaty with the Soviet Union. You have to remember the Soviet Union was not a party to Versailles, to the Treaty of Versailles. So behind the back of the Allies, he concluded a treaty, the Rapallo Treaty. Sensational. And at the same time, it was there were secret clauses in that treaty which provided for the rearming of Germany, and for German forces to be trained on Russian territory, on Soviet territory. An extraordinary arrangement made that was in just 2 months before June the 24th, 1922, when on the way from his house in Grunewald in Berlin, he was assassinated in an open car. There had been an elaborate conspiracy to have him killed. And the assassination of Rathenau, public, it was in broad daylight at 11 o'clock in the morning. The assassination of Rathenau was a turning point in the life of the German Republic, of the Weimar Republic. The public was so aghast at this violence and at the way this was done that it became a major event. In the funeral, at the public funeral, the Chancellor said, "The danger to the Republic, let us face it, the danger to the Republic is coming from the right." There is, I think probably still is, in many German cities, Rathenau Street, Rathenau Square, named after Rathenau. In Germany, he's very big name, very well known. And that was the love object of Lili Kahn, Lili Deutsch. And she lived on in Germany, in a big house in the Tiergarten, a house. Felix Deutsch, her husband, was also very musical. He was the son of a cantor in Breslau. And in that house, one of the few private houses in Berlin or anywhere else, there was an organ, as well as a concert hall. And when Richard Strauss was in Berlin, that is where he stayed. And she was a very great lady, Lili Deutsch, and lived on after her lover's death. And when the Nazis came, she thought, well, they can't touch me. I'm, after all, the widow of Felix Deutsch and the AEG and this huge corporation in Rathenau, and Rathenau, no friend of the Nazis. Anyhow, she thought nothing could happen to her, and she waited, and she thought nothing. And one son died in 1934. Another son, George, had gone to England right at the beginning, soon after the Nazis, maybe even before, in the early 30s, went to England, worked in the film industry in England. And he said to his mother, "Come, you must come. And she didn't. And she stayed back home in Berlin until she was there during the Crystal Night, survived. Early 1939, at last, her son Georg persuaded her to come to England. So she left Berlin, went to Belgium. And in Belgium she stayed in a hotel with her daughter. She had a daughter and a son-in-law. And the three of them, the son-in-law was a music director in Leipzig, Brecher. And the three of them went to Belgium and stayed in hotels waiting for their things to be shipped across from Germany, and it didn't happen. They waited and waited. They were to, her belongings were to be collections and money and whatever, but to be sent to Luxembourg. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. They went to Holland and Belgium, stayed in hotels in Belgium. And the spring of 1940, the Germans came. Nobody knows what happened to them. It is possible that they killed themselves. It is also possible that they drowned in a small boat when they tried to flee across the channel to England. Nobody knows what happened, and nobody will ever find out.